So as a garment sewist, I often end up getting sucked into going to look at quilting things. Quilting does seem to be the dominant form of sewing right now, and while some of you do a little bit of both, I predominantly garment sew, and so I've ended up looking at a lot of quilt stores for fabric and notions and all sorts of other things and finding ways for them to work with me. So this is a very extreme example of this, is going to the world's largest quilt show and if this was useful to me as a garment sewist. So hello and welcome back to Ashley Main Makes, and today we are going to be talking about the International Quilt Show in Houston, Texas. Now, why I thought I would talk about this is not only about this show in particular, which I am going to be talking a little bit about, but I know in general a lot of cities have quilt shows, and a lot of the quilt shows have these same vendors or very similar vendors at them. And so I thought it was worth talking about to see if this would be worth it for you to go to something like this, even as a garment sewist. So how this all came about is I didn't buy a ticket for this, but my good friend Olivia was originally planning on going with her mother to the show, and unfortunately, her mom had a bit of a conflict with a wedding, and so she ended up going to that instead. So there was a ticket up for grabs, and so we both decided we would go anyway and have a wonderful girls' weekend, which was fabulous. So it was a really good time. So we went to the quilt show and did it in a very chill, laid-back, lazy manner. The show itself is held at the Houston Convention Center in downtown Houston. Video outside the convention center. Us doing quilt show. Olivia at quilt show. Yay, Olivia at quilt show. Looking cute in her patina blouse. Yay. And actually, I thought this convention center was awesome. It was very clean and very nice. There are a lot of different restaurants at all sorts of price points all around the convention center that are pretty accessible, so it was in a really good area in that way. There's also a city park right there that was really well maintained, so if you needed a minute to like get out and have a breather, like we went off and had lunch and were able to like sit outside, enjoy the weather, and then come back into the convention center, which was really good to help keep it kind of chill and low-key. The other thing that I really like to see is they had a lot of seating all over the convention center with chairs set up all over, and the aisles were nice and wide. I think this is really important, especially when quilting is sort of geared towards older people. I know I've gone in the past to a lot of these convention type things with my Nana and like older relatives, and so it's always something I am aware of when I go into spaces like this. So that was really nice to see, and they were being utilized a lot. They really were conscious of not filling every possible space, even though I'm sure they could have with vendors. Getting more into the more general nitty-gritty, so one of the first things that you'll see when you walk into the convention center is there's two main areas. There's like the marketplace, and then there's the actual quilt competition in this case. Now, I know some cities just have the marketplace. This one actually has the International Quilt Competition right there. So there was fabulous quilts of all different types from all over the world in there, which was really cool. I don't know that much about it. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But what we started off with was the marketplace. In the marketplace, there are a whole bunch of different things, but there was like a few main categories. The first category was sewing machines, and embroidery machines and quilting arms. So there was virtually all the big players that had booths set up there. All of them were advertising screaming deals for sewing machines and embroidery machines. I don't know if that's necessarily true, and this is one of the pieces of advice that I would give you right off the bat. If you're in the market for a machine, don't feel pressured, because when I was with Olivia, we went to talk to one of the manufacturers because she has been really enjoying using my serger and cover stitch. So she was considering a similar model, and they said their brilliant show price was actually more than I ended up paying at our local dealer. So I wouldn't feel pressured by any of the high pressure salesmen at any of these booths. That being said though, they did have all the top of the line models there, which was really cool. Some of them had some lower end models, but all of them were out and able to be tested and were being tested. So I think if you were considering a sewing machine, if you wanted like a newer machine or an embroidery machine, serger, something like that, I would say do your research and then go have a look at all the different machines, because it was really cool to have them all there. It probably would save you some time, especially if you're from, say, a smaller town when you don't have all the vendors like near you. I know we only have a couple of here in Austin. So yeah, so it'd be good to have like something in mind of a model you're looking at a price point you're looking at, and kind of, I would go in with a game plan myself because it would be really overwhelming otherwise. There were some really cool things. I did really like a few of the Elna machines, which I'd never seen before. They had a few like light industrial ones there that I was looking at that were really interesting. They had some of the newer models that they're bringing out to market for embroidery machines. They had one in particular that we were looking at that had like an app, which was really kind of cool. A lot of them don't give you as much freedom as I would personally like, and I don't know if I'm the type of person to actually use an embroidery machine. My cost per use would probably be pretty high, so it's not something I'm considering at the moment. I would say, again, try not to get roped into it because it's all very exciting. I don't think you're missing out on the deal of a lifetime, but I also do think it is nice to be able to test all the different machines and compare them all, basically all in one place. Next thing they had, which like I wouldn't say there was as much of this as I thought they were going to be. There was like a few vendors that had irons. There wasn't that many. Oliso had a booth, which was like kind of cool. Poked around it a little bit. Panasonic had a really cool cordless one. I don't think I got any footage of that, but it actually comes off and charges. So it's like cordless, wireless, but it doesn't hold a charge very long, but I still think it was kind of cool. I think I would enjoy something like that for like my live videos. So that's something I might look into. If any of you want to sponsor me, consider it. Please do. Same with the other one I saw. LDH Scissors had a booth, which is something I've actually been looking at. Tomcat Stitchery had a sponsored thing a while ago from them, and we were testing out their shears and their nippers, and I nearly bought a pair of nippers. They had a gold pair of snips, and but the other guy that was standing next to me snatched them and bought the last pair before I got a chance. So you guys in particular, call me, because I really liked the scissors. I was really expecting more scissor vendors. I've been in sort of the market for some snips, and I was really expecting like more tools to be there, which was sort of surprising. You'll have to let me know in the comments down below if there's like, I've been more in the market for like irons and scissors and that sort of stuff. There was only like basically the ones I mentioned for that. So there was a couple other things for fabric. There were a lot of dealers that had some Ankara fabric, beautiful Ankara fabrics. I think again, I would have had to go in with a plan. I didn't even know that was going to be there. Being Ankara, it's very stiff and very narrow, and a lot of them were selling smaller cuts. There were some that would give you unlimited cuts as well, which was really cool to be like on the spot, be like, I'll buy your bolt. But I think I would have had to go in with a project in mind because I kept looping and looking at them all, but I was like, oh, what would I do with them? Because they were quite narrow, which again, as being plus size is a little bit difficult. So I think I would have had to, and they're like super stiff. Like I think I'd have to come up with an idea for it, which just didn't happen. There was a few dealers selling things like alpaca, which was kind of cool. I don't really know how that fits in with quilting, but I enjoyed the alpacas. I love alpacas. I would like an alpaca sweater at some point, so, but like less involved in actual crafting. The other thing they had in terms of fabric, and it was actually probably the majority of the shop, were selling fat quarters of different fabric. This included them carrying a lot of collections of like say Ruby Star or Tula Pink, you know, a lot of the big name sort of quilting fabrics. As a garment sewist, I didn't find this super useful because a fat quarter is sort of useless unless you want to like do a little bit of bag making or use it for a hem or something like that. I didn't find this super useful, and after a while, because this show is so big, a lot of it just started to feel like repeats because there were so many vendors sort of carrying the same thing. Honestly, I'd say if you have a local quilt shop, you're probably better off. I mean, it was kind of cool to see like whole collections of quilting fabric together in one place. Like they would have a fat quarter of like one of every type that was in that whole collection. But again, as a garment sewist, not super useful. So, and we in Austin are spoiled rotten with Beehive Craft Studio. I've mentioned them before, and they carry a lot of the Ruby Star and some of the other ones. So to me, I would rather go up there and be able to have a look at it and buy as much as I want. But again, I think if you were coming from out of town, or maybe you wanted to buy online, it would be a good way of seeing the collections. But like the dress I have on right now is quilting cotton, and it's great. And a lot of times you can make it out of quilting garments, but obviously they aren't going to carry as much as you would need for a garment at a show, which makes total sense. So I felt like a lot of the vendors in the show started to blur together just because so many of them were carrying the same fabric. A lot of the more recent like Ruby Star collections and that, and I, you know, even me not being a quilter, I could pick out the collections over and over again. So I don't know, it might be worth comparing pricing within the show, but you know, other than that, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Again, I feel like the most useful part of going to a show like this would be more like fact finding. Like if you had a particular project in mind, would be to go and have a look at like say a sewing machine, or go and have a look at a fabric collection, and not necessarily buy it there, to be honest. I picked up a lot of business cards and that sort of thing if I wanted to go online, have a look at it. There were a few things for like bag making, which was really cool. Again, sort of like more of a niche thing outside of quilting, and there were some few places that had some nice fastenings. I did take their card. I think I've got some footage of Olivia poking around, but stuff like that's really cool. And again, like it'd be good, like Olivia's case, she had this bag in mind that she already had the pattern for and wanted to make, and so she was able to pick up some quilting cotton for that. She picked up some findings for that and kind of like built her project. So I would really recommend like having a project in mind before you go into the show, and not necessarily like pulling random stuff while you're there. I think that's a really good way to waste your money on stuff you don't need. The other one I really liked was there was a couple that was doing trim called Trims on Wheels, and that was actually one of the few things I did buy from the show. Again, it was kind of hard because like one project I had in mind, the other trim I probably shouldn't have bought, but they're both really beautiful. They're both from France and they do specialty. So this is more like the kind of stuff that I like to see from shows like this. They're like more things that are individual, because like I say, like to me, if I was one of the operators of this show, I would try and have a little bit more variety. I would really like to see more interesting things. There was a company that was making garment labels, which was really cool. I know my friend Olivia ended up getting some of those. Or there was a gal selling vintage button sets, which also was really cool. And that's the only place she sells. She doesn't sell online. So vendors like that, I think, were a lot more interesting to me. There weren't that many of them, but they were definitely there, and it was definitely very cool. Obviously, this is a different day. It's a different outfit, same pattern. It is raining outside, so the lighting is totally different. But I thought I would talk about the second half of the show, which is the actual quilt competition itself. Now, this is an international competition, so there's artists that have submitted from all over the world. It was actually pretty interesting. I did see the best in show that won, which was absolutely spectacular. They had used a bunch of like tiny pieces of all these different patterns that were generally the color to fill out this face in sort of a pixelated fashion. It was really cool. My personal favorite though was the contemporary winner. I absolutely loved this quilt. I think I definitely like contemporary quilts more in general. I'm not really a quilt person at all, so it's always fascinating to see high caliber work no matter what field it's in, and some of this work was absolutely stunning. You would have almost no idea it was made out of fabric. If it had been like just framed or something, I probably would have assumed it was a painting in a lot of cases. That being said, like as a person that doesn't know much about quilting, I really didn't understand the individual categories and kind of like why they were. Some of them were really obvious, like one was like a red theme, and there was a few that were like of a specific size or that sort of thing, but there was a lot that were different ways of working quilting, like pieced versus appliqued versus there was thread painting. I feel like that's fairly obvious, but They would have kind of a laundry list of what techniques they were using in the quilt. And honestly, I would have really loved like an explanation card of like what that technique is. And I feel like it would have really given me a greater appreciation for actually what they were doing, because even as a person that sews, I really didn't understand what I was looking at. And I assume a lot of people get dragged to quilt shows that aren't like necessarily the most knowledgeable. So, I mean, that being said, I was at a quilt show, so I feel like I should have probably known more, but I would have loved to see some sort of like explanation on like what the different techniques are, so that when I saw them on the like description bars, then I would have like a way better idea of what I was looking at and like a greater appreciation of the work that went into it. Overall, I think that was really cool. Like I say, artists from all over the world, like Japanese, German, from Canada, like everywhere. Be a good YouTuber, taking video of activities, talk about them. There's Olivia. But yeah, it was, you know, overall it was just a really good day out with my friend, and we had a really good time regardless of not really knowing much about quilting at all. It was really fun to see all the machines that are out there and some of the different notions and tools and all that kind of stuff. Personally, I would love if we could have a garment sewing convention, but I feel like that's not going to happen, hence the purpose of this video. I think I would now, knowing kind of like what the vendors are that is at such a show, I would definitely go in with more of a game plan. Like my friend who had like her bag pattern picked out, or, you know, I had some specific projects in mind of what I wanted to look at, or machines that I wanted to look at that were on site. I very went into this blind. It was like a very last minute thing. So, but yeah, I think that would be my recommendation, is to go in with a little plan of like maybe something you'd like to look at, or if you're in the market for any tools in particular, and yeah, and just generally enjoy yourself, pace yourself. It was huge, this particular haul, but like I say, it was very well managed and well organized, and there was lots of good places to take breaks. Overall, a fabulous convention. Do let me know if, you know, you go to a quilt show or if this is something you attend regularly. I'm hoping this is helpful. I know it's like a little bit outside of my regular content, but I thought it was worth talking about because I thought that, like I say, now knowing what's there, that it would help me out. So if you're planning your first trip, especially if you're from like a smaller town or something. But I am going to get into a little bit of bonus content, so if this is all you wanted to talk about, you can peace out here. Please like and subscribe on the way out. I would really appreciate it. But yeah, if you want to hear some like kind of personal stuff that we did, hang out. So the next day, actually after the quilt show, we ended up going to Galveston. I had kind of expressed a wanting to go to Galveston and see a lot of the original Victorian homes that are there outside of Houston. It's about 45 minutes south towards the coast, and it was absolutely a lovely day. I didn't really film a bunch of this, but I do have a bunch of photos. We walked around the whole sort of historic Victorian neighborhood. Actually, a lot of the early wealthy families to Texas lived for some reason in this particular part of Galveston, so it's one of the oldest areas in Texas. And the homes are absolutely beautiful, and they have a lot of different Victorian styles kind of all in one place. The main one that we toured was actually the Moody Manor there in Galveston, which is like the Moody family. If you've been to Austin, like all of the major theaters are put together by the Moody Foundation, and it's those same Moodys that owned the Moody Manor, and it's absolutely spectacular. So that was a lot of fun to look around. We had a bit of a look around the house. A lot of the other historic homes were closed because there was a motorcycle rally, unfortunately, so we didn't get to go inside a lot of them, but I still really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it if you're headed out that direction. It was absolutely stunning, like much beyond the beach. So I know a lot of people give Galveston crap, but actually I really, really enjoyed it. We had a drink at the Hotel Galvez, which is the kind of main big historic hotel down there that's been fully restored, and that was absolutely lovely. And it was just fabulous. Big recommend for me. The other thing that we saw at the Moody house was one of the last Moodys that owned the house. She had a whole series of her outfits from what would have been the late 50s into the 60s. And that was really cool to see because she was in her like 40s, I think, early 40s. When she wore a lot of these outfits. So I don't know, it was a lot of fun. I did take some pictures of that. So if you're into vintage fashion, I'll leave them up here. And she wasn't a small lady either, which is kind of fun. Honestly, it was a fabulous weekend. I needed it so much. and I really thank my friend Olivia for coming with me. She's been like one of my best sewing friends ever. On that note, I did want to show you something very special that her mom actually found for us. Her mom works for a charity shop in Houston, and they got some fabrics from an estate. And so though I didn't buy these, got some lovely fabrics from an estate that are Liberty wool. So I have never seen these before. These are from the late 80s, early 90s, and they are all Liberty wool challis. This lady with this estate had absolutely wonderful taste, and they all came in large yardage lengths. Like this one is 4 yards, for instance. So I thought I would share these with you guys because they're absolutely stunning. Feel so soft. I have been keeping them in these Ziploc bags just in case because they are wool and I was worried about any moths or that sort of thing, but they seem to be in beautiful shape for the most part. I don't see any moth holes in these ones. I do have to give them a bit of a wash. You can see this one's has a little bit of age on the white here at the end. But yeah, I thought it was really cool. I wasn't aware that Liberty had made wool at one point in time. So this was a really cool find, I thought. And this was kind of fun because, like, considering I didn't buy anything at the quilt show, I still kind of got something. So I thought I would show you these guys because they're very fascinating to me. This one is 2 yards. This one I want to make a lovely shirt out of. Got some, it's like a very, kind of want to make something like 70s inspired with it. We've been looking up a few things that Liberty had produced in the wool. Seems like most of them were a little bit earlier, more towards the 70s, so that would kind of make sense. But like that other print is definitely early 90s. This one is very cool. Sorry, all the bags. This one is very cool. This is another Liberty. There you can see the original tag from the Liberty fabrics. Just a huge stash. There was so many yards of this. So this is a 5-yard cut in this beautiful kind of royal blue and green and coral there. So actually Olivia got some of this too. So we both have about 5 yards. So we're going to make some matching dresses to go with each other. And I think that's going to be super cute. I'm really excited about that. We don't get the opportunity to do that very often. So, but yeah, so I just thought I would share that with you guys as kind of some bonus content, if you will, just because I had never seen these before. I really enjoy them, so I'm looking forward to making some projects in it. I've never actually made anything in wool, if you can believe it. So and these are just so smooth, like they aren't scratchy in the slightest. So Liberty cotton is stunning, and to come across a stash of Liberty wool is a whole nother thing altogether. So I hope you guys enjoyed this somewhat rambly video about my trip. I hope there was some useful nuggets of information in there, and we'll have some more like talking videos coming up here shortly. I'm going to be talking about free patterns and a few other things. So please do hit that button down below and subscribe. I appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye guys!